Good morning to all of you. Uh, I would like to frankly admit that it will be plan B for me, because after the distinguished guests on the dais, Dr. Balian and my senior colleague, Vartika ma'am, has so nicely and effectively summarized almost all the aspects of how to emerge into gas economy. Suddenly sitting in the dais, I found that almost 75 to 80% of whatever I intended to speak has already been spoken. So that's an issue. And as prudent as it would be to continue after this insightful and enlightening dialogues by both Dr. Balian and Vartika ma'am, what I would like to attempt at is to create a summary perspective with regard to the topic of today's meet, that is how to empower ourselves to get into the gas economy. In the year 2016, in the International Energy Forum, our Honorable Prime Minister had actually laid the foundation of the energy strategy of India, with the 4 pillars of energy strategy being energy access, energy efficiency, energy sustainability, and energy security. And also, to address this, it is very apt that the cleanest of the fossil fuel, natural gas, get increased in its consumption to occupy a higher percentage in the primary energy basket of India. Hence was the focus to shift from 6.5% to 15%. Initially it was 20%, then rationalized to 15%. And even as our eminent speakers before me explained, that even this target is very daunting. And there is this energy conundrum that whatever is a cleaner fuel is not always ready to access and to be made available to the huge appetite of a country like India. So though we know the solution, the real question is how to address the issue so that we can actually consume gas in a way we want to and increase its percentage. Vartika ma'am had rightly pointed out, and it was indeed a coincidence, that only in yesterday's Times of India, there was a front page news that the global impact of increased temperature is not actually 1%, which was predicted by IGCC, Intergovernmental Climate Change Panel, way back in 2012, but it will actually be in the range of 3.6 degree. It is alarming. It is alarming because this 3.6 degree increase in temperature is being predicted taking into consideration that all the associated parties and governments will adhere to the COP21 resolution, would reduce their carbon footprint, and even then we would not be able to stop this global warming process. This would in effect means around 27% of the land all over the world will be under sea. About 50 to 55% of our Arctic and Antarctic will melt. And the severe and the most critical changes that are going to impact lives can well be understood by all our distinguished guests. So it is not about prediction. We in Delhi, we have faced the severe effects of pollution. We in Delhi have understood how it is like to live in a gas chamber. It is now a compulsion. It is not merely an intention. The resolution that has been taken in COP21 to reduce our carbon footprint by 33 to 35%, that itself has a strange paradigm that as a developing country, we also aspire to increase our energy use. So on one hand, we are saying we have to lower the carbon footprint. On the other hand, we aspire to increase the energy use so that we can give a boost to our economy. So obviously the solution lies in selecting a cleaner fuel, selecting renewables. In fact, our government of India has very ambitiously targeted 175 gigawatt, which has now been revised to 235 gigawatt. We presently are at a capacity of 85 gigawatt of renewables. But then again, renewables are intermittent. They are not continuous. So if we really look for a smart grid where we can evacuate the renewables, it has to be gas-based. End of the day, we need to make a solution where we can use gas in the power sector. Getting back to the intention of getting to the 15% magic figure and maybe beyond that, the three key aspects for gas economy are availability, accessibility, and affordability. To summarize, to map the supply and the demand side, and just to give an entire perspective with regard to how we have planned this LNG summit so that we can address each and every aspect of it. Let us first address the availability aspect. We have limitation in our indigenous domestic gas production, and as has been elaborately explained by Dr. Balian, I won't go into detail, but of course the hydrocarbon exploration policy, the open acreage licensing policy, the discovered small fields, these are all positive steps towards increasing the domestic production. Also to incentivizing the high pressure, high temperature gas wells by offering a higher price. That again is a need of the industry, and we need to actually look beyond this. We also need to look into the technologies to leverage the gas hydrates and other options. Even after all these proactive steps taken by the government in the last 4 or 5 years, we still understand that the LNG aspect is very, very crucial in the entire conundrum of gas economy, because that's one form of fuel which can be very easily transported. It can be made very easily available despite the infrastructure not being available. So LNG share in our overall gas consumptions is on and up, and it's always going to get increased. With regard to the transnational pipelines, which we had earlier for the last several years, almost a decade or more than that, we have been planning with regard to the Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India pipelines, TAPI, India, Iran, Pakistan, India pipeline, the Myanmar, Burma, India pipelines, the SAGE submarine pipelines of Iran, India, or Iran, Oman, India, the pipeline connectivity between Russia and India, which at one point of time EIL along with Gazprom was creating a study with regard to the feasibility. These all actually have not yielded result. If we just look to our neighbor China, the pipeline connectivity between Myanmar and China had actually started operation way back in 2011, and they are actually being able to exploit the gas in Myanmar. We still could not actually leverage it. So it is time to look into the policy-related roadblocks that can be solved at a government level, that can be solved at the policymakers' end, and we can create these options of availability as well. The existing LNG regasification capacity, as on today, it stands somewhere around 37.5 MMTPA. With the facility that are ready, that are under construction, that are on the drawing boards, that are being planned, we aspire to take it beyond 50, maybe to a figure of around 75 MMTPA as of now. But even that is not enough, because as our previous eminent experts have explained, that it is not about touching 100, we can only have a 40 to 50% utilization of capacity. So it has to go far beyond that. We have a coastal line of 7,500 kilometers. If you look at the way the distribution has happened, primarily all the 5 LNG terminals are on the west coast. There is none on the east. Of course, now the ones are coming in Ennore, in Kakinada and Dhamra as well. But there is a lot needs to be done. We need to increase this capacity as well, because Government of India over the last 4 and 5 years have consistently been trying to leverage the position of India as the 4th largest energy consumer in Asia to get into collaboration with countries to bring in LNG. I had been privileged to be a part of the ministerial delegation to Far East Russia recently, wherein we are also contemplating to bring in gas from the Arctic region, from Sakhalin, and using the Eastern Trade Corridor, using South China Sea. Now, if this happens, this will be a new era, because actually, if you look, the distance will be far less than getting it from Australia. And these can be the sources which will actually open up terminal capacities in eastern coast, and which will actually cater to the hinterlands on those gas-starved states which are not presently in the footprints right now. Coming to the accessibility part, the pipeline infrastructure has again been a puzzle very hard to solve. It has always been that egg and chicken story, whether the infrastructure should precede or the demand should create infrastructure. And unfortunately, as we all know, that if I cannot make energy accessible, there is no market. We have presently around 16,000 kilometers, and we need to build additional 14,000 kilometers, which again is very capex incentive. Nothing significant had happened over many years, but recently the Government of India, PNGRB, has taken a very rightful steps to increase the footprints. We have this Urja Ganga project, which had actually created a completely different landscape for bringing in gas to the hinterland, from Jagdishpur to Haldia and Bokaro to Dhamra. This is about, this has been made possible with about 40% incentive from the government. So it was not really the IRR which was governing this project. Similarly, the Indradhanush project, which is actually bridging all the northeastern states, again is another project where all the state-run PSUs have joined hand together, and they are making it possible. We are trying to bridge this gap, but still a lot has to be done. In absence of the pipelines crisscrossing, because right now it is the concentration is only on the western and northern sides, it is actually the intermittent solution which is more important, because the nation cannot really wait for the pipelines to happen and then actually go on to get on gas economy. So we are also thinking into the intermittent solutions. The intermittent solutions can be the small energy LNG carriers, which can actually utilize the inland waterways. It can also be the small LNG carriers by road, by virtue of which we can actually take the energy to the nascent areas where it is starved of energy. And EIL, for that matter, we had already gone ahead and signed an MOU with Cochin Shipyard Limited. The idea was to create the small LNG vessels which can actually be used in a draft of less than 2.5 meter, and can be all the inland waterways can be used, and the LNG can be carried in the hinterland. Also, the coastal movement from one port location to another, one terminal location to another, can be done by this coastal port. We are doing the topsides. The shipbuilding part will be taken care by Cochin Shipyard. But of course, there's a lot to be done and more to be done. More players have to come in because the market is huge. There is a huge appetite. With regard to the opportunities, we don't have to look outward. Dr. Balian had already emphasized that United States already have 2.5 million miles of pipelines. Our nearest neighbor, China, has over 75,000 kilometers of pipeline. We have not been able to build to the extent that it can facilitate us to easily migrate towards a gas economy. But at the same time, right steps are being taken now. It is about the process of acceleration, which will actually let us know in time whether we will be able to reach the figure of 15% or 20% in future. Coming to the affordability part, it is about the sectoral preferences that has been given by the hydrocarbon policy of the usage of gas, of the rights of use, wherein CGD is the first preference. CGD is primarily, the city gas distribution network will primarily run on domestic gas, and a correct decision, because that is how you can actually make energy available to each and every household in the form of PNG, in the households and industries, and in the form of CNG in the transportation sector. And then to the fertilizers. We all know that gas is an input to the fertilizers for making the products like urea, and if we can reduce the LNG use in fertilizers, we can actually will be able to save a lot of retention cost of production of urea, and thus we have to import less urea. So a component of the gas economy in LNG, though not directly involved, is also to look at how well we can utilize our biggest resource in the primary energy basket, that is coal, in the route of gas. So coal gasification here again is a very, very critical area where we can make syngas, and from the syngas we can go to the fertilizers, we can go to the olefins, and we can actually supplement the gases in the traditional way. The Talcher Fertilizers Limited already in Orissa are coming up with a coal to syngas and syngas to urea and ammonia project, and this particular project will actually use coal. It will not be on imported LNG, and the savings, annual savings based on its capacity will be in excess of 2,500 crores per year. So that is the required fillip which we need to understand, that how we have to look into all aspect of the gas economy, not merely LNG. LNG is only one part of the story. Madam Vartika before me had explained about the Satat scheme, about the compressed biogas. There is a capacity of around 60 to 62 MMTPA, wherein we can utilize the agricultural wastes, the municipal solid wastes, and make compressed biogas. And there is an offtake assurance by the oil marketing company already. This will give a fillip to the farmers. This will actually boost their income, and more importantly, it can also be a solution to the stubble burning, which results in very difficult times for people like us in Delhi. Coming to the power sector, we all know this is a sector where lies the real issue, because power sector is one sector where it can't really absorb the fluctuations in the prices of LNG. We really cannot, we have not seen at our end when we do the analysis that a gas-based power station, in spite of having around 26 gigawatt capacity in the country, about 60% are not being used as on today. And that is because if the price is in excess of $4 per MMBTU, it is not feasible. And how to make it feasible? Because end of the day, as was told by my previous eminent speakers, end of the day, if we really have to comply to the commitments that we have made for COP21, we actually need to have about 60% of our power getting shifted to the gas. And there is only one way, that is about cross-sectoral subsidies. There are sectors like oil and gas which can actually very nicely use gas and absorb the volatility of the gas price to create value-added products. At Engineers India Limited, we made several studies. We had made studies of refineries and integrated complex on coastal areas with imported C3, C4s, gives tremendous IRR, is a very, very good value-added proposition. We have also created study wherein we actually combined the capacity of 3 or 4 refineries situated nearby, pooling in the naphtha, replacing the naphtha by bringing in gas as a fuel, and then utilizing all the liquid fuels as a feedstock for either improving the motor spirit production or using it as a building block for the petrochemicals. And there again also, there is a tremendous value-added opportunity. there is a great opportunity of using imported propane and imported ethane to create on-purpose chemicals, niche chemicals. All these products are being imported as on today with a heavy impact on our exchequer, our foreign currencies. And all this put together will significantly create an ambience where we will actually truly be able to derive the advantage of the gas economy. I would not, we are running beyond time, so what I would like to say here is, just to conclude, that right now the economy is in a little spot of bother. The markers are not really where our industry captains will like to be where it should be. Primarily, energy is always an enabler to boost the economy. We have always seen that oil and gas sectors have actually given the thrust necessary to create the large-scale industrial projects, which in turn can help in allowing the very, very important aspect of employment, creating infrastructure in the hinterland, creating the requirement of power, which thus enables the power generation, creating employment automatically talks about the importance of affluency in the people, particularly in the working level and the lower strata of the pyramid. And these all actually lead to disposable income, which give a fillip to the retail industry. So it is a complete cycle in the economy which gets kick-started by the energy sector. And with a impending gas economy, the kind of vision that our government of India has provided to us, 8 trillion economy by 2024-25, sorry, 5 trillion, which means about 8% CAGR. We have to grow at 8%. The energy usage is only going to grow around 4.9%. So primarily what we actually have to do is we have to do much more than the predictions. We have to do much more than the numbers that are being guided at us to adhere to. And I really thank Messe Frankfurt for bringing in such a topical and ever-relevant subject of LNG, and I'm glad Engineers India has been very privileged to be the knowledge partner. We have tried to stitch the sessions, we have tried to bring in the speakers, we have tried to address the issues for each and every segment of this upstream, midstream and downstream of the entire gas chain. And I hope all of you will enjoy today and tomorrow's proceedings, and with your valuable support, with the inputs that we would be getting, we can probably create that dossier which is so needed for the policymakers at the government level to go ahead. So let this forum, this particular conference be one of the key input provider to the policymakers, to the government of India. We hope that we will be able to make that little contribution by doing this. Thank you so much.